What I'd like to do is to sort of go through the process, address competency. Competency in terms of person going to court is presumed. Everybody who goes to court is presumed to be competent to stand trial. The question of their not being competent has to be raised. If a person, a lot of you may have folks that are incompetent individuals, that status has no bearing in court, and it does not apply. Competency for trial versus incompetent person are significantly different. An incompetent person, or competency to stand trials, relates to the person's ability to understand nature and objectives of the proceedings and of assisting in the defendant's defense. So that's a very narrow definition of competency. You can have a person who's an incompetent person, but they're going to be competent to stand trial. Once the competency evaluation, once it's ordered, it's to be completed and submitted to the court within 30 days. Those evaluations must be done by a psychiatrist or licensed psychologist. Now, there are some problems with that in the sense that a lot of psychiatrists do not have any background in DD. You heard Laura talk about 8 that are in the state. One of the things that happens in Cuyahoga County, which is noted for its psychiatric clinic for forensic evaluations, they use a lot of forensic fellows. The issue of specifying if that person is subject to hospitalization or institutionalization is very important. In terms of, for DD folks, if the evaluator says this person is an individual who's not able to stand trial and subject to institutionalization, that automatically requires a separate evaluation that must be done by statute, by law. That is unique to the developmental disability consumers. There's no provision for that in terms of mental health. One of the other issues that's in there is likelihood of becoming competent within 1 year, provided with a course of treatment. The criteria for determining a person being competent is can they be restored within 1 year. Yet, the time that they have to restore a person varies anywhere from 30 days to 1 year based on the nature of offense you've been charged with. And again, treatment says defendant's treatment needs community safety. Priority is always placed on community safety. Most folks do not understand that NGRI, not guilty by reason of insanity, is a plea. For a person to make that plea, they must be competent to stand trial. What happens a lot of times when they raise the issue of a person's competency, they will also ask for an evaluation of sanity, the terms of sanity at time of the act. The NGRI relates to the person at time of the offense they're charged didn't know as a result of severe mental disease the wrongfulness of the act. So that relates specifically to not knowing at the time of the act that you were charged for the wrongfulness of the act due to mental illness. The second evaluation. This is, again, unique to developmental disabilities. It's required by statute if the person's not competent to stand trial and meets civil commitment criteria, which means, again, this is a person who's moderate MR. This evaluation must be done by a mental retardation professional or developmental disability professional. I will apologize because the law that I've been dealing with for the last 12 years still says MR, so if I say MR, it's because I'm citing the law that I'm dealing with. And that developmental disabilities professional must be appointed by the director of the Department of DD. So a person's restorable. Now, you heard me say there are folks that are going to get referred for restoration. Time period is 1 year that they use to determine that time. If you have committed a felony 1 or 2, which are the most serious felonies, they have up to 1 year to restore you. If you have committed a felony 3, 4, or 5, the maximum time for restoration is 6 months. If you are in the municipal court system and you have done a first or second degree misdemeanor, it's 60 days. If it is a third, fourth, or minor misdemeanor, it's 30 days. So even though I'm looking at can you be restored in 1 year, you start to see automatically there are some real issues with that because the time frame is significantly different. So a lot of times you're going to have people that may be considered restorable that ultimately are not restored, partly because of the time frame in which the restoration can be done. For an ISTUCJ person who's institutionalized, there's a level system. Now, you heard Charlotte talk about the ODMH forensic manual. This is one volume. I'm now holding up the Department of Developmental Disabilities Procedures and Policies for addressing this population. There are none. So the challenge we had when this individual went to Warrensville was developing a system. The court is very familiar with this. That's the system they hold us accountable to. Level 1, persons admitted to the unit, they cannot leave the unit. Not even with staff, they're restricted to the unit. The only time they can leave the unit is if for an appointment. Level 2, they're allowed to leave the unit beyond grounds of staff supervision. Those are the only 2 levels that you can make a decision on that person about. Normally, the person comes in by the time of their admission IHP, they're moved to level 2, and they're there. One of the expectations of the court is that this individual remains incident-free for a minimum of 6 months to move to level 3 or above. How many of our individuals can remain incident-free for 6 months? Yet in mental health, you stabilize me, I could be incident-free. So this is a serious issue in the sense that for many of our folks, they're not going to be able to be incident-free for 6 months. But if you just look at this, I could be at level 2 in 30 days. 6 months after that, I could get to level 3. 6 months after that, I could get to level 4, where I could start to go off grounds. 6 months after that, I can get to level 5. I'm already looking at 2 years. Okay, so again, restoration for our individuals is, again, primarily for the mild individuals. It's going to be done primarily in the mental health system. The developmental system, you understand the reasons why, but yet they may be more suited. So with that, any questions?